Have you ever wondered how you can build AI application as smart as ChatGPT? By the end of this tutorial, you will learn how you can set up LangChain, the concepts of LangChain, and how you can connect to powerful large language model. So what exactly is LangChain? LangChain is an open source framework which is designed to help developers build applications that are powered by large language model. With the help of LangChain, we can import our own data from databases or maybe from API or local files and have these read by our large language model so that our model can understand data related to our business area. So before we go to the concepts of LangChain, let's discuss what LLMs are. LLMs, known as large language models, they are the core intelligence behind AI-powered application. So we can think of them as the brain that actually process and generate human-like tests. For instance, we have LLMs such as GPT-4, Claude, and Llama. So these LLMs, they are trained on massive data sets, which usually contain text from books, articles, websites. So they have the ability to learn pattern, context, and relationships between different data. With LLM, we can carry out different tasks such as text generation, translation, summarization, and more. Now let's look at some of the core concepts of LangChain. We are going to mention few of these concepts because these are the concepts that we are going to look at in our implementation. Under the LangChain concept, we have the chat models, we have the messages, we have the prompt templates, LangChain expression language, and the output parser. So each of these are going to be explained and they are going to be demonstrated in our code. So now that we understand what LangChain is, we can go further to set up our environment by going to the OpenAI API platform where we can set up an API key. So you go to your browser and you type platform. Yeah, that's the first thing that came up. So platform openai.com. So you go to login. Also, if you haven't signed up, so you can try to sign up. So I'm going to go to the login. So you can either log in with your Google account or any option that you prefer. So I'm going to log in with my own Google account. So now that you're on the platform, you're going to click on the settings and you go down to the API keys, which is at the sidebar. So this is the API keys. So you click on create new secret key. So just put in any name, maybe, okay, yeah, let's put test projects. So click on the default projects. I click on create secret key. So you're going to copy this particular key, just put it somewhere so you can be able to gain access to it later. So you can put this maybe in your notepad or any location where you prefer. So you're going to click done. So because I already created a previous key, I'm going to revoke this key. Also, I would like to bring it to attention, before you can be able to do any API calls with this API, you ensure you have a minimum of $5. Because it seems OpenAI already discontinued the free credit they usually provide to new users. So just have a minimum of $5, you'll be able to make API calls. So we'll go to our Jupyter notebook then. So now we're going to be making some installation. We're going to install the python.env. We're going to install the LangChain, and we're going to install LangChain OpenAI as well. So under this python.env is where we are going to load the environment variable. So we are going to create an env file which will contain the API key that we copied earlier. So I'm going to show us how we can do that. So if you come under my folder, so I'm going to open this particular folder with VS Code. So if you see, just create the .env file, open API key, so and you paste. So let's load the environment variable. So we brought in our API key. So the first concept we are going to be discussing is the chat model. Chat model have the ability to work with different types of data. So data that is ranging from text or images, audios or videos, so which is usually classified as the multimodal data. So the chat model also operates in a way whereby it takes messages as inputs and return messages as outputs. So when we talk about this term, we mean messages are usually associated with a role. So we always have the system role, the human role, and the assistant role. So these are going to be discussed further. Under the chat model, we also have different parameters. So we're going to mention a few out of these parameters. We have the model, we have the temperature, we have the mass tokens. So when we're talking about the model means what we want to select or the type of model that we want to work with, such as maybe GPT-4 or Claude. And the temperature refers to how we can control the randomness of our generated tests. So it's always very good to pick values ranging from 0.7, 0.8. So if you pick a value that is very low, so it's possible that your output is very predictable and repetitive. So the chat model also have some different key methods that you can use. So we have something like the invoke method, we have the stream, and we have the batch. So we usually reference each and every of these whenever we are working in LangChain. Under the chat model, we also have different integration which allow us to work with different providers. So for instance, we have the, just like we mentioned earlier, the Cloud 3.4 Sonnet is from Anthropic, whereby the Gemini is from Google. So LangChain has a way whereby it allows us to connect to any type of providers that we want to work with. So we go to the documentation. You can see each of these different providers that we mentioned earlier. We can see the Anthropic, we can see OpenAI, Azure, Fireworks, and the others. So we can gain access to each of these providers, assuming we want to work with them. So here you can select a chat model. So you can select any from the list. So you see the Azure. So you can toggle through this drop-down list. So you can inspect it. So I'm going to put their documentation under the description so you can gain access to it. So now let's try to demonstrate using the chat model. So we're going to define our model. Let's use GPT-4 mini. So I would love to use a max token. So the reason why I'm using a max token is because I can be able to control the results that is going to be returned by this model. And the reason is because if we go to the OpenAI API pricing, because it's very important. So assuming I'm using something like the Open A101 model, so it's definitely, I'm going to be charged more. So it's very important for you to look at the pricing and look at the costs. So here you can just toggle through show prices in 1K tokens. So 1K tokens is equal to 750 watts. So you can try to explore this particular page so you can have an idea of how you can make your API calls. You know, it's very important. So I'm going to add this under the description as well so you can see it. Yeah, so let's write a question by saying, okay, let's say what's the capital of US. Okay, so let's do model.invoke, what we're going to use to call our model. So model.invoke question. So let's put let's define, put it in a variable so we can access it at any time. So let's run this. Now this should be max tokens, not token. Yes, so let's print the response. Yeah, you can see the capital of United States is Washington, DC, and these are also the other metadata that was returned. So we can just gain access to only the content by doing response.content. So which is what we want to see. So now let's discuss the messages and look at the different types of messages that we have in LangChain. Messages are what we use in chat model to represent model inputs and outputs. Under these messages, we have different types. We have the system message, which corresponds to the system role, the human message, which corresponds to the user role, AI message, which corresponds to the assistant role. We also have the AI message chunk that corresponds to the assistant role. This is usually used for streaming purpose. We also have the tool message, which corresponds to the tool role. So now let's look at each of these different types of messages. Under the system message, which is used as the system role, it is usually used for setting the tone of our conversation. So let's say we want to tell the AI that, okay, this is a conversation about driving. So it's just like we are trying to set the tone to let the AI know, like, okay, this is what the conversation is going to be based about. Also, when we are talking about the human message refers to as what we are sending to the AI, while the AI message refers to the response that we get from the AI. So now we're going to go back to our code and look at how we can use these different types of messages. So let's demonstrate how we can use messages in LangChain. So we say from LangChain code of messages. So now let's define our messages and how it's usually used. So okay, so let's say the system message, which we said is going to be used to set the tone of our conversation. So let's say you're an expert. Let's tell the AI that you're an expert in English grammar. So now, under the human message, we are going to pass what we want the AI to do for us. So let's say, let's tell it to give us 3 synonyms for which word. Let's use encouragement. So now we've defined our message. Actually, there are 2 ways where we can define this type of message. So I'm going to show us both ways that we can use to define our message. So let's do model.invoke and we pass in the message. So let's put this inside a response. Very important. So we don't have to keep doing multiple calls. Okay, so I think we've not run this, so let's run it. Okay, let's run this as well. Okay, so we've run this, so let's check our results. So let's do response.content. So you can see, it said here are 3 synonyms for encouragement: the support, motivation, and inspiration. So, okay, we can pass this under outputs. Let's say we want to pass this under outputs. Because that text is very dirty. So let's replace this new line. Yeah, so you can see here are 3 synonyms for encouragement: support, motivation, and inspiration. So this tells us like the AI doesn't divert from the tone that we already set, because we told the AI like you're an expert in English grammar. So it doesn't divert from what we ask it to do. So now let's also look at another way we can send our message apart from this format. So let's do something else. Let's define another message. Instead of where we are passing the content, because we actually send the content directly. So here we can specify content. We can say content is equal to. So we pass what we want to tell the AI. So which is the baseline or the tone of the conversation. So let's say you are a math is it tutor or expert, or let's say you're a math tutor. Okay. So, and if we remember when I used the max token is equal to 50 here, so it wouldn't exist, it won't exceed above this particular token that I already set. So it's very important. Okay, so let's put so just like we said, the response is usually the AI message. Now let's print what we have. Let's print AI message.content. So see, it tells us that 20,000 multiplied by 5,000 is equal to, I think this is 100 million. So these are the way we can pass in the AI message and the human message. So also we can also use the OpenAI format where we have the role, we have the users. So let's use that role by saying this is the user, this is the user role. Okay, so under the content, we are going to pass in the input from that user. Make sure you put a comma. Okay, so now we're going to define the assistant role. So we tell it what we want it to do. Say, can you tell me a joke? Okay, so after we've done that, so we can use the model, our model by doing model.evoke. Then we pass in the inputs which we defined. Yeah, so this is it. So the reason why we define this by doing this role, where we define the user, we define the assistant. So it's just like we are trying to tell you like, I want this to be in this particular context, so the assistant does not deviate from what we actually want. So let's say you are trying to do something on a specific task. So we have whereby you define your role as a user, you define what you want the assistant to follow. So it's going to follow that pattern that you did in your description. So this is how the messages is usually like. So we've looked at the different way we can define our message. So this is also the OpenAI format that we can use to send our message to the AI. So the next thing we're going to be looking at is the prompt templates. Prompt refers to ways we can talk to the AI. While the prompt template is a way whereby we can structure our prompts in a dynamic way before we send it to our large language model. So instead of hard coding a prompt, it's always good to pass it through the template before sending it to our large language model. So for example, if we have a particular text like this, so what we have inside the curly brackets are called the variables, and what we have previously before it are called the static text. So this static text, they doesn't change. What we have inside the curly brackets, they can be changed at any time. We can replace it with different values that we want to send to the AI. So we have two types of prompt templates. We have the string prompt templates, and we also have the chat prompt templates. So these two types of prompt templates, we are going to demonstrate how we can use both. So we're going to import both prompt templates and the chat prompt templates. So now we can pass in the prompts. So let's do an example by let's use the prompt templates first. Prompt template.from templates. Okay, so here let's just type something here. Tell me a joke about so this is what we're going to replace whenever we call these templates. We're going to put the actual values there later. So we do prompt.invoke. So now let's pass in the value. So we'll say topic. Then, okay, we can put something like maybe cards. No. So this is a string prompt template. Yeah, this is a string prompt template. Okay, so let's look at the other type. That's a chat prompt template. So let's call the chat prompt template. So we're going to be using the system and user type of message here. We can say you are a testing, you are a helpful assistant. Okay, knowledgeable about what isn't. Okay, so we already set the tone, so I'm going to send in my inputs. So now we're going to use the invoke on this prompt. So based on what we sent earlier, we can pass in, it should be in a string, so country. Okay, so we can change this at any time. We can change these prompts that invoke at any time. We can put different countries, maybe French, just take any country, just put any country dynamically. So this AI is not going to go beyond this context because we already set the tone. And what we are telling it to do is list 10 dishes from. So any country that is specified here is going to list the 10 dishes from the country. So now this is how we can define our template. So now we need to do something whereby these templates that we've defined, we need to send it to a large language model. So this actually brings us to the concepts that we're going to discuss further, which is the LangChain expression language. So the LangChain expression language is a declarative syntax that allows us to compose chains of different components together. So here we can pass our prompt to the large language model and to the output parser. So there's usually like a pipe operator whereby we can chain all these different components together. So let's look at how we can do that in our code. So based on the prompt template that we defined earlier, we are going to demonstrate it with the LangChain expression language. Let's just copy what we have. So just like I mentioned, we're going to be using a pipe operator to chain all these different components. So we're going to define chain. Let's say chain is equal to, because we already defined our prompt template and we are ready to send it to our large language model. So we want our large language model to give us a response. I'm going to take this guy out. Just leave it for now. Let's say prompt, so I can pass it in our runtime. So let's put prompts and the model together. This is the pipe operator. So we use the prompts, then the model. So we can now use chain.invoke. So you know, like this is a variable, so we need to pass the value of the variable. So let's copy what we have here and put it here. So, or we can put it here by saying input is equal to this. So let's take this out. So because we must specify the variable, it's very important. So let's change this to input. So when we are calling the chains, the invoke, we must pass in the value of the variable from the prompt template. So now we're using the chain.invoke input. So let's put this inside and output. Okay, so let's run it. Okay, so output. So yeah, that's content. Yeah, so this is just a simple way on how you can use the LangChain expression language. So let's go further and try to use it with the okay, this cuisine topic that we defined earlier. Okay, so let's use it for this as well. So just like we did, we said we start chain, so we put our components together, which is the prompt and the model. So the values that we have inside the prompt template, we must define it somewhere as well. So to let us know, like, this is what we are passing. So for the country, so we're going to be using Mexico. So let's just copy this. So which is the input. So we're going to do chain.invoke input. Yeah, so here is our results. Okay, I'm going to pass this to an output. So let's just do output.content. So here we can see, here are popular dishes from Mexico. We have the tacos, corn or flour, such as, okay, I think this is what it actually counted as the dishes. No. Oh, no, this is not what it counted as the dishes. It's because of the tokens that already set earlier, the maximum token that already sent earlier. That's why I couldn't return the 10 dishes. So okay, so assuming I remove the max token from here, so if I removed it, let me try to remove it. So let me remove this. Okay, so let's come down here. So it should give me the 10 dishes. So if I do output that, so we can see these are the 10 dishes. So we can see how we can use the LangChain expression language. So the next thing we're going to look at is how we can pass out our output in a more structured format. So I'm going to show us how we can do that in LangChain. The output parser is a tool that we use for transforming AI model response. So this tool is very useful if we want the results to be generated in a structured format. So LangChain has different types of output parser. So it has the CSV, the Pydantic, the JSON, and the string. And we also have more than this. So we just mentioned a few of these output parser. So let's look at how we can use this output parser to return the AI response. So we're going to import the string output parser, which is what we're going to use for our demonstration. So from LangChain. So let's say we have this particular type of prompt. So which is you're an experienced medical professional specializing in so field. So this is our own input. So we say you should list 3 symptoms for this disease. So we're going to tell the AI to give us based on the disease that we specified here. So now we're going to use the output parser. We're going to pass the output parser. So let's initiate it. So let's call the string output parser. So now, we mentioned earlier, like when we're using LangChain expression language, it's the way we chain multiple components together. So earlier we did for model and the prompt, which is the prompt template. So here we're going to chain the string output parser along with it. So we're going to say chain is equal to our prompt, then the model, and the output parser. Okay. So now let's call the invoke on this chain. So say chain.invoke. So here we're going to pass in the input, which is for, let's define our input, which is for our prompt template. So the first one is the medical field. So let's pass in the actual value for the medical field that we're interested in. So which is the infectious disease. So let's use the disease name, or maybe malaria or typhoid disease. So malaria. Okay, so we can do chain.invoke where we pass in the inputs. Okay, so let's run it. So let's print our results. So you can see like this test is actually very structured compared to what we had previously here. So we're going to test this one as well with the output parser. So this is the string output parser, which we demonstrated here. You can see like the result is more structured.
So also with this output parser, there are different types. You can use the data frame, Pydantic, and so many others. So what we have here, let's also use the output parser and what we did here as well. So let's just copy the output parser since we've defined it here. So this is the output parser. So let's do output.contents. Oh no, I'm not supposed to do output.contents. Let me just print the output. Since it's a structured result. Okay, so you can see what we have from our results. So it is more very neat and structured. So this is how we can use the output parser. So now we have come to the end of this tutorial. I hope this tutorial was able to cover every basics that you need to understand about LangChain, where we look at the prompt template, the output parser, the large language model, and the others. So if you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more content like this. Also turn on the notification bell so you can be aware whenever I drop any new video. Thanks for watching, and I would love to see you next time.